I'd like to ask the Chairman of the Environment and Infrastructure Committee why the committee issued its report on the Regional Sewage Treatment Strategy in advance of receiving the full independent report on the Regional Sewage Treatment Strategy Phase 2, which had been commissioned by the Manx Utilities Authority.
Call on the Chairman of the Environment and Infrastructure Committee, Mr. Callister.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to take this opportunity to thank the Honourable Member for Ayre and Michael, Mr. Baker, for giving me the opportunity to clarify that the committee has in fact seen the independent report from M.W. Baker Associates. We were sent a copy of the report on the 14th of February 2018. By that time, we had largely finished our deliberations, and we concluded that the findings of the report did not substantially change our position or our conclusions or our recommendations. We were asked by the Manx Utilities to keep the contents of the independent report confidential, and therefore I would prefer not to say anything more at this stage. Our investigation into the Regional Sewage Treatment Strategy began almost a year ago in May 2017, and it was subject to a number of delays. The independent review commissioned by the Manx Utilities after the completion of Balladurel sewage treatment works in Ramsey, and it also appears to suffer from slight delays themselves and longer than they expected. We did not therefore wish to delay our own report any longer than necessary. As we understand it, the independent report now has to be considered by the Council of Ministers Environment and Infrastructure Committee and the Council of Ministers before it can be brought before this court. We hope that this process will be completed in time for the Tynwald sitting in May 2018, which will give us an opportunity to debate our report. Thank you, Mr. President.
Baker.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank the Chairman for that clarification. Can he assure us that this Honourable Court will have full sight of that report in order to meaningfully digest the committee's reporting in good time before it's debated, presumably in May? And can he clarify the broad conclusions of the, I think it's M.W. Barber, not M.W. Baker, report that didn't change the committee's view?
Callister.
Thank you, Mr. President. I take on board what the Honourable Member for Ayre and Michael's just said, and I'll take those away with me because it's realistically not our report. All I can do is ask the court to accept that it would not be appropriate for me to answer any further questions until the government has had an opportunity to publish its response to the committee's report. The court will have an opportunity to debate this matter in full when the government response before us all in May. I shall be able to deal with any of the additional questions or any further issues that this court may have and the honourable members when that report is laid before this court in May. Thank you, Mr. President.
Now, taking into account the fact there will be debate on this matter in May, I'm reluctant that we turn this question into a further debate. However, Mr. Harmer did a supplementary question, bearing in mind what I just said.
Thank you. Would the Chairman agree with me that obviously this is a very important matter, as we just outlined in the last question, and secondly, that it does not find it unusual that any independent evidence wouldn't be material to a report? And I noticed that the report was delayed for another witness. Would he not agree with me that it's unusual not to have considered the independent report fully?
Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. President. I take on board what the Honourable Member for Peel and Glen Favours just said, but as I said, I think the committee has already deliberated this. It is an interim report. It is only our first report. I'm certain that the committee will be publishing additional reports and it will look into this independent report in more detail. As I say, we got hold of a copy of that report on the 14th of February. We'd already done our deliberations, conclusions and recommendations, and what's in that report, there isn't a lot of difference compared to what we've actually outlined ourselves. But we will take that report in more detail and probably have more to publish on our second report. But at this stage, I think it's unwise for us to say anything more at this stage until the document is debated.
Final supplementary, Dr. Aronson.
Thank you, Mr. President. Would the chair of the committee also acknowledge that a Tynwald resolution was that where there was any proposal for capital infrastructure to be delivered over a period of 10 years or more, there should be a strategic review once every 5 years, and that the independent report commissioned by Manx Utilities with the cooperation of the DOI is part of that commitment, and so really is an intrinsic part of your review to the RSTS Phase 2.
Chairman,
thank you, Mr. President. I take on board what Mr. Allison, Dr. Allison just said from Ramsey. Realistically, yes, that report should every 5 years, and it was slightly delayed. It should, I think, if my memory serves me right, should have been presented in 2016. So we're a good 18 months past that deadline. We do have this independent report. It is not our document. It belongs to the Manx Utilities. They've given that report to the committee, so I need to take that away. I need to investigate if that document forms. It should be put into the public domain. If it isn't put in the public domain by May, then what will happen is it will almost certainly become, it will be part of the review that we carry out on our second report when we look at Laxey and Buldrine as well, Mr. President.
Mr. Baker.
Thank you, Mr. President. Sorry, could the chairman clarify, because he seems to have given two contradictory answers there. I took comfort from his previous answer that the report would be available in good time for this honourable court to digest by the time we debated the committee's report in May. And now you seem to be saying that you're not sure that that is the case. So which is it, please?
Alistair.
Thank you, Mr. The MW Barber report, as I say, we only received it on the 14th of February. That report was an independent report commissioned by the Manx Utilities. So we'll need to speak to them in respect of how that fits in with our committee structure. As you said, we've looked at it, we've read it, we'd already done our deliberations. This is an interim report that we're publishing now. When we look at the second phase of this, we may take that document into more consideration and deliberation. But at this stage, that report, the independent report from MW Barber, it's not our document. So we need to speak to the MUA to get their authorisation if that should be put into the public domain. What we were talking about this morning is our interim report that we've laid here today, and the document which will be debated in May, and we look forward to that debate in May.